Stage Door.
Hey everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake, and you're listening to The Stage Door with Dave Hondel.
5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Hi everybody, welcome to The Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondel. I am so honored to have the guest that we have tonight, Joel Hoekstra with Whitesnake. Joel, thank you so much for doing our show tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Joel, I know besides, Whitesnake, people will recognize you from touring with Cher and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, formerly with Night Ranger as well. You've also gigged with Foreigner, and you've been in Rock of Ages show on Broadway. So where do you find time to sleep? Where do you find time for yourself?
Oh, plenty of time, man. I mean, people tend to make a big deal of that when musicians are busy, but we're definitely not busier than regular people working their 60-hour-a-week jobs. So, it's totally fine. I love being able to play for a living and be able to get paid to get better at guitar. So that's kind of my whole MO. That's just how I look at it. I'd rather do that than sit around and practice on my own. I love being able to have a gig and like a mission.
It definitely makes sense. Joel, how has the quarantine been for you? I see on social media you're staying busy with side projects. So what can we all look forward to in the near future from you?
Yeah, the main thing I'm working on right now is the follow-up record from my side project, which is called Joel Hoekstra's 13. And I don't really have a name for the album yet or a release date or anything, but it's basically the same lineup as on the last record, Dying to Live, which came out in 2015. So anyway, I'm working on my guitars right now and going through the files that other guys have been working on and checking those out. And so it's really coming together, though, and it's sounding really great. I love it. So really into that right now, and kind of next up, I think we're starting up on another VHF recording, which was another side project that I did with Tony Franklin and Todd Vinciguerra, and that's a little bit more like psychedelic instrumental rock. So not exactly mainstream, but it's great fun for me. So that's kind of up next, and then I have I've been doing like a variety of sessions for people and teaching Skype lessons and doing interviews, keeping busy, just trying to be productive and doing the best I can with the situation at hand. And that's basically the deal. There's a surprise coming with a group of guys that we're trying to get out that hopefully will put everybody in a good mood too. So working on that and I gotta remain kind of hush hush on that. But there you go. Yeah, but just trying to stay busy, man.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear about what's coming out. So that's great. Thank you. And then also talk about the collaboration when you talked about your 13 Dying to Live. And I know you have acoustic songs out there and The Moon is Falling. And I know you collaborate with a lot of other artists out there. And talk about that collaboration with those artists and on your side projects or maybe tracking on someone else's project. As an artist, is this important to, your career path and also continued growth?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think to get better at what you do, you have to do it, right? That's just the way life is. Whatever you spend time doing, you're going to get better at that. So I try and play guitar often, but also I try and make it real world as much as possible, if that makes sense, and not make it like practice or a simulated event, more or less, right? So I try to get it to the point where it's like I have some real musical mission. I'm creating real music with the guitar rather than just running scales or noodling or something like that, which can almost become its own thing in a way. It's not that I don't do that. I do on some nights, but it's nice to have a session or a gig or something that's a little bit more musical. But yeah, in terms of who I collaborate with, I just try and look for productive, positive people with talent, and that's just my thing. Is I like to be around people like that because they end up lifting you up. Being around people that are more talented than me or whatever, that inspire me and have good attitudes, and that's the kind of thing where it rubs off on me, and then I become a better musician through that.
Oh man, you're absolutely right. It's important to surround yourself with the right people. Now, Joel, you always stay busy with multiple gigs and solo projects, but you always take time to connect with your fans on social media. You've been at it a long time. In your opinion, how has social media impacted the music business, and more importantly, you as an artist, to be able to connect with so many fans on more of a personal level?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love it, and a lot of people think I'm crazy. I mean, I write back to everybody through inboxes on all the platforms, and I said the other night on an interview, I'd estimate it's probably a good 250 a day or something like that. But I'm not writing a paragraph to everybody, but I try to get back to everybody, and then try to do that religiously, so it becomes like something where the people understand that I'm there and I care and I appreciate the support and everything like that. The music business is a two-way street, and it's just that it's the modern way it is nowadays. I mean, I generate a lot of business through social media. I try to keep that what social media is about for me. I'll list whatever gig I'm doing that day or some kind of work-related thing. I try and steer away from all the things that are personal opinions and divisive and like politics or whatever. Stuff like that's just not for me. It's not for me in general. I'm not really a big fan of that stuff. So it comes easy to me to steer away from it, but I'm kind of a simple guy who just likes to make a living playing guitar, and that's what I'm after in life. That's what makes me happy. So hopefully that in some regard I'm a good influence to people, just because I like to work and stay positive about things like that. So and not get too dragged down or hate people because of what political party they're affiliated with.
Yeah.
That's not me.
No, I mean, Joel, I can personally vouch for that over the years. You've been very gracious and generous with your time on social media, so I know it's very much appreciated by your fans out there, not only of your personal fans, but the band Whitesnake and everybody else that you're with. So that's I think very much appreciated. When working with so many bands, this is something that I personally want to know about, actually. When working with so many different bandmates and, various gigs that you've worked with, you go from Whitesnake to Cher to Trans-Siberian Orchestra in the wintertime and, back to Cher possibly if she goes on tour, and then back to Whitesnake. When you work with so many bandmates on your various gigs, sometimes you don't have a lot of time to rehearse together as a team. Talk about how you adapt to that change, and is it similar to being on a team where you have to kind of adapt to each other's, style of play, perhaps? Does it take a while to kind of adapt to that, or is it just everybody's in the business, you know what each other can do, and is it easier than I'm making it out to be?
There's definitely a gear shift in terms of when I go from gig to gig where it all feels a little weird for a day or two or whatever, just to kind of get back in the groove. But at the same time, it always, for me, just comes down to how much I'm preparing going in and preparing on my own. And in general, a lot of being in a band is like that. You don't want to waste everybody else's time learning the music while they're sitting in the room and they know it, right? So you want to be the guy who comes in and knows it all already. In terms of doing your preparation, not knowing it all about music, by no means am I saying that. But in terms of just preparing the best you can to be ready for what you're about to step into. That's how I've gotten everything, honestly. I mean, I've been the guy who's like a preparation fiend, and I practice really hard in advance going into rehearsals even, or much less a gig. So yeah, there you go. I mean, but in regards to what you're saying, there's some truth to that. There's a little bit of a gear shift for sure, where the first time you play, you're like, wow, it sounds different than I remember, because my guitar sounds will be different from gig to gig, or even the guitars I'm playing, or what I have to do on stage. And a lot of that just comes down to prep, man. Just how much I can visualize doing the actual gig and just prepare the best I can.
And then also you were on Broadway for a long time as well with Rock of Ages. And, I know on Broadway, people do 8 shows a week, and you're doing the same thing essentially every single night. And do you ever find it hard to get up for a certain performance if you're not feeling it that night, knowing that that person obviously, hasn't seen the show yet and they're excited to see it? I mean, is there... What does that come into play a little bit when you just have to kind of pump yourself up a little bit extra one day over another?
I would say definitely with Rock of Ages. I mean, I did so many of those. I probably played that show 1,800 times. And it was definitely, like, I'm sure you've seen the movie Groundhog Day. There was days where you feel really dark about it, and there's days where you feel really happy about it. And at the end of the day, you just try and do your best to at least go through the motions accurately, if that makes sense, on a gig like that. And I say that not like I would do that with a gig, like say I'm out for like 3 or 4 shows a week. People don't understand Broadway is 8 shows a week. So often you're playing 2 in a day, and that just continued for over 6 years. So realistically, I wasn't inspired every show. I can't lie about that. I mean, there's times where you're just like, oh man, let's just get through it. I just want to go home. But you're there to do a job, and you obviously play the best you can. And at the end of the day, there's like there is always pride in terms of like wanting to play well. I would never let myself slip below a certain level of, I guess self-respect in terms of the way you want your playing represented and the way you want yourself represented. And luckily, that just seems to always be instilled in me that I don't want to totally slack off on stage. But to be totally honest, you're correct that there's times where you don't necessarily feel that inspired. So I guess it's pride that carries you through. How about that for an answer?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Do you see a difference in rock fans overseas compared to the fans in the U.S.? When you sometimes you show us videos on your social media, these overseas fans, and they're going insane for the music. And do you find a difference in the fans where you go geographically?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's definitely cultural differences all around the globe. They're extremely vocal and crazy in South America and amazing to play for. And Japan, they can be like that immediately after a song, but then also enter a very analytical mind space where they love to analyze what the musicians are doing, and more so than I guess American audiences or even European audiences. And of course, I think European audiences are so open-minded with their festivals where bands are crossing genres from band to band. I mean, it was like when I did Sweden Rock with Night Ranger, I think Mastodon was on after us. I mean, we were like, we're going to play just before Mastodon? Like, is this, are we going to get stuff thrown at us? But there was none of that. Everybody was very open-minded. So I think that's definitely different than the United States, which tends to be very focused on what's quote-unquote cool or hip. And but then again, there's so much to love about the U.S. The people are really wonderful and passionate in the U.S. audiences as well. But there are definitely differences.
Now, when everybody's got their own journey and how they got into what they do, but in music, how did you find your way in music? I mean, what did you start? I know you got into, I think, classical first, if I'm not mistaken. So talk about your journey in music and how you got to be interested in it.
Yeah, it was my parents were classical musicians, so they had me playing really early. Cello when I was 3 and piano when I was 7, and I didn't care for any of it. I just wanted to play baseball. And then I heard AC/DC and saw Angus Young and thought he was the coolest dude in the world and wanted a guitar. And thankfully, I had a great teacher who just taught me nothing but rock songs, basically, in the beginning, and that really jump-started me. And because I had played the other instruments, I already had a pretty good sense of pitch and rhythm, and I could, as soon as somebody taught me a power chord, man, I was off and running. I was figuring out all the songs on my own, even. So that was a great way to start and kind of just find my love of music. And then eventually, as it became necessary to become a pro, develop all of the necessary skill sets and everything. But that was basically it. And then in terms of like what I was into at that point, it was just hard rock in the early going, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, Iron Maiden, Scorpions. Those were all the bands that were probably my favorites starting out. And then definitely branched off into lighter bands that were more melodic, like Journey and Foreigner and Boston, Triumph I loved. Then also I'd say at the time progressive bands like Yes and Rush, very into those, very into the guitar albums when those were out. The Satriani, Vai, Yngwie, all that stuff was big influence on me, or had a big influence on me. Steve Morse, all those guys. Taking classical lessons at a point then again too, and opening my mind to learning that and learning jazz, and just trying to be. That was a great era to grow up in because it was cool to do that. It wasn't looked down upon to learn other styles and to try and learn more than just like standard rock, because all the shredders were coming out that had all these abilities, so it was considered cool at the time. It was a great era. Definitely classic rock stuff too, man. 70s stuff. I mean, Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and 60s stuff like Hendrix and The Doors and all that stuff. I loved. So I got a lot of different influences that kind of shaped who I am and what I grew to be.
Did you find that being in classical music first, did that help you with learning a lot about music theory and chords and progressions and things like that? Did it kind of help you as you grew into the rock scene to have that classical background?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a couple good teachers. When I learned how to solo, I had a teacher who taught me really the modes and all about theory on the guitar. And then I had another teacher that sort of taught me the GIT curriculum before I went to GIT in Hollywood. That's a guitar school, the Guitar Institute of Technology, which is really a division of MI, Musicians Institute. So I went there for a year, and I kind of really learned the curriculum before I went there, to be honest with you. But that was another year of just kind of playing tons of hours of guitar and bettering myself. And my dad was a music theory professor in college. So, I mean, I grew up around music theory and definitely learned a lot of it. And I still, to this day, think it's a really valuable way to come up with ideas. I think a lot of rock musicians tend to just go with the derivative thing of like, this is an AC/DC kind of idea, or let's write a song that's kind of like a Sabbath idea. But it's also kind of cool to be able to come from a headspace of theory to write something that's not derivative, if that makes sense. So if you do learn your music theory, then you can learn to play with heart and feel within all these systems and learn to create within them. And I think it can lead to some very original material as well. So I try not to turn my nose up at any of it. That's not to say I don't like the derivative approach too. I do. It's all like which road you want to take, right? Like, I get it. If somebody says, dude, let's write like an AC/DC kind of jam. All right, cool, let's do it. I never say, no, I would never do that. I only want to write music theory songs, you know? I mean, that's not the point. But the point is it gives you one more option in terms of your approach to writing or to playing music.
Yeah, and then, we also have a lot of indie artists that listen to our show, and I know a lot of them are going to be listening to this podcast, and if there was one word of advice you would give, what would that be from your aspect of your career? And, if there's one thing you could tell them, a piece of advice.
Well, I think you get back what you put into it. So work hard. Try to work harder than everybody else. If you do that, then everything's going to be all right. I really haven't met too many people that play guitar like 8 hours a day that didn't end up fantastic on guitar and able to achieve all kinds of great things. It does take a balance, though, too, because the window's always shutting on you in terms of your window to succeed in terms of the business thing, to be able to pay your bills. And so you need to find the balance and understand that it takes both. It takes really the skill and focusing on just being an honest musician, and then also at the same time being somebody who's personable enough to get out and meet people and do the right things. And usually when you find that combination, that just the right amount of each, things will work out for you. Yeah,
that's great advice. The other thing, Joel, is that on your website, besides your music and a lot of other great things, you offer guitar lessons and career counseling. Talk to our listeners about what they can find on your website.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the web store, that's something new that I just really started doing, and I've really only done a handful of them, but it's been great. I mean, I've enjoyed doing them, and I think I can give people good advice usually when they talk to me about where they're at. Most of them seem to be doing better than they would think. Sometimes it's just about being patient. It takes a long time to build a music career. And guitar lessons, of course, I mean, that's its own thing, and I did a lot of teaching when I was younger. So for me to teach is almost just second nature. Is that what I'm looking for? It's easy for me to teach. I taught 70 students a week for basically from the time I was 21 till about 30. So about like 8-9 years or something, maybe 10 years of teaching that much. So I did an awful lot of that in my life. That really paid the bills for the most part through my 20s. And then really from the time I was 30, I kind of found gigging became the primary thing, and only teaching a little bit to support that. If people go to my site, Joel Hoekstra, I have really hard names, so HOEKSTRA.com, Joel, Joel, right? Joel Hoekstra, HOEKSTRA.com. And then they can go to the web store and see that stuff and a bunch of stuff, but they can also just find out a lot about me. There's everything on there. I try to be really diligent about keeping that up. David Coverdale calls it my Encyclopedia Britannica. There's like a lot of information on there. I have a ton of I don't know how many reviews are on there, quotes, but it's just a gazillion. No one could ever go through and read them all. It would be impossible.
So obviously this quarantine has affected everything, including tour dates and postponements and cancellations. When things get back to relatively normal, if that happens, do you know if these tours are going to be rescheduled at any point?
Well, I mean, you need to look at what the World Health Organization is saying at the moment, which is they're saying nothing until the fall of 2021. So it's pretty profound.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, I've got enough in the bank to kind of float me for a while and give me an opportunity to stay afloat, but it's not ideal by any means. I guess that's basically cutting me out of income for a year and a half. So it's pretty heavy duty, but man, like I said, it's more about just trying to be productive for the time being, and hopefully I'll make it through that. And if not, I'll get another job. No, I don't know. I hopefully things will be cool, man. I just hope things get back to normal at some point. And I don't think we all ever realized how much we appreciate normal, but this is definitely letting everybody just see how awesome we had it not too long ago, right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It really does put things into perspective for everyone, for all of us in our lives. But Joel, I really, truly can't thank you enough for being on my show tonight, and I'm just honored to have you as a guest, so thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much. It was a great chat, Dave.